Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number, I think we're on 3 now, of the Medic on the Mic podcast. Today, I have my buddy Bill Young from Kentucky hanging out with us, talking about imposter syndrome. And we're talking about, so much stuff. It was an amazing conversation. And before we get started, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I had some complete camera failures, so I'm upgrading all that. So it was atrocious visually, but the podcast itself, if you're listening to audio, went really well. But yeah, cool stuff coming from that. And we had a great conversation, and I can't wait for you all to hear it. Again, we are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, as I get this stuff working. And again, remember, one-man show, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. But that's the best part, because we get to learn. But I really hope you enjoy. Please reach out, send me an email, contact@brandonheggie.com, and I'd love to have a conversation. If you have any questions at all, you have any other topics, please reach out. I'm going to try to get this up, and I really hope you guys get a lot from this. It taught me so much because I get to hear from Bill. Bill is a super cool dude. He's a lecturer. He's a doctor. He is a super awesome individual. And it's only sparked more interesting conversation for up in the future and ideas of other guests. So again, reach out if you have any questions, follow the podcast. I really hope you enjoy it. And otherwise, I'll see you here in 2 weeks. And I'm shooting for every Monday morning, every other Monday morning to get these podcasts out. So thank you all. I appreciate the support. Thank you, and enjoy the podcast. Excellent. All right, cool. Well, Bill, I am so happy to have you here on episode 3 of Medic on the Mic, and it's been so much fun so far, and I wanted to have you up for the last one, but the schedule didn't work out, though how everything fell out. But you know what, we're here, and the first podcast I did, I actually talked about imposter syndrome, and the first thing I thought of was oh, Bill and I talked about this up in Alaska.
We did.
He feels it, and I felt it, and so I want to talk about that today, and then anything else under the sun. It's open forum. We talk for I don't care how long. And
well, you may have time for 3 or 4 podcasts then.
Yeah, buddy. We can edit it down. I need more material for later, so I am totally cool with that. But First off, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're at, backgrounds, all that jazz, and then we'll screw around and see what happens.
Outstanding. Thank you, Brandon. Well, my name is Bill Young. My current gig, and has been for the last, in August it'll be 12 years. I'm the program director at Eastern Kentucky University. Our claim to fame is that we're the second oldest accredited program in the nation. We came in just behind a little tiny college out on the West Coast you may have heard of, UCLA. And we're really proud of our program. I love teaching. I've been an educator for probably at least 3/4, if not more, of my tenure. In June, I celebrated my 50th year in EMS. Dang. So yes, that means I am old, but I love EMS. And in particular, I love the education part of it because, again, one of the things I like to tell people is sometimes we get into these types of misunderstandings and people get tagged with different names and stuff. And just people that I go to church with, that I work with, some of my friends will say, well, how do you deal with today's generation? And I often will tell them, apparently you're hanging out with the wrong young people, because my kids are working their tails off because they're full-time students, and most all of them are full-time EMS responders as EMTs. And so they teach me things, they encourage me, they keep me humble, they hassle me about being a dinosaur, which is perfectly okay with me. And so that's just kind of a little bit about me.
Right on. No, that was awesome. Because I remember when and my camera keeps going in and out, so people are going to deal with that for the rest of this thing, but whatever. But I remember going up, and when we were talking because I finally got to meet you in Alaska at Alaska EMS Symposium, which is a blast, and I get to go back this year. Are you going back this year?
Symposium. I wasn't invited back this year, so I will continue to apply, and I'm hoping that they'll have me back again someday. It was awesome. It is so one of my favorite conferences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But so I remember sitting up there, and one of the coolest things that when I sat in your class, we talked about the AI stuff and using it for not only just like building courses or scenarios or even like the testing questions and stuff. But that stuff I use all the time, and it just helps out with the productivity and all that stuff. It also makes me feel like an idiot at the same time because I'm like, I should know all this stuff to begin with. But no, it's cool to see like how you're integrating all of that with today's population of EMS providers and I'm sure you've noticed it like I have, because I've been a medic for 14, 15 years now, and they're learning stuff today that I was like, it's over my head from the crowd. I was like, end title, we never learned about end title. Like, we just started getting these things like a couple years later, and all the new medics are like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and this. So I feel like an idiot, and so having to get caught up. And
even in Kentucky right now, the basic application and basic interpretation of end title is in the scope of the EMT. And for me, I was just thrilled to have a resusciani when I went through EMT school back in the dark ages when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I was just thrilled. I thought the resusciani CPR mannequin was just the coolest thing I had ever seen. And now we've got a sim lab that have mannequins that will bleed and urinate. And the freakiest thing about one of our mannequins is the pupils will dilate and constrict just like mine and yours will. And that blows me. That just blows my mind.
It is nuts. Yeah, I remember I was using the 3D sim man, or the 3G sim mans over 3G,
there. Yeah, that's what we got.
Those things are cool. Like, they're expensive. Like, the school had like 7 of them. But learning how to use all those, it was really cool. But I didn't get to play with those till well after I went to school, obviously. But all the tools are just so incredible, and we have to be on our game and on our craft and growing internally while also trying to just manage ourselves. And to me, it's made me question a whole lot about, like, do I actually know all this stuff? And being that, you know, I'm our EMS lieutenant right now at work, so I have to do QA, QI, and make sure everyone's on top of everything. But I'm like, that means I need to know at least as much as them, or hopefully more, and they are schooling me every single day. But at least I can be that support. And I don't know about you, how much you go through that and having to stay up on top of everything while still teaching all this stuff. Do you think that it's like extra complicated for you, or you've learned your skills like going through your doctorate program, or like how have you gone to manage with maintaining teaching and learning yourself at the same time to teach that stuff?
Teaching and learning is a two-edged sword as you get older. Obviously, I like to joke with my students, and I tell them, if all you have in your life is EMS, will look like me, and I'm only 27. Okay, and we get a good laugh out of that. But again, as you get older, it becomes more difficult to learn and to retain new things. However, the good news about that is, as you get older, one of the best ways to learn to retain new things is to learn new things every day. Yeah. And so I do, and I'm really honest with my students and the people I talk with, that if I say something that is goofy, please call me out, because I don't want you to be confused. So an example is, we were talking about endocrine emergencies in medical emergencies class a couple of years ago. And I kept saying, well, insulin is secreted from the placenta. Insulin is secreted from the placenta. And all of a sudden, I saw my whole class get that kind of like that confused puppy dog look. They turned this way.
That math is not mathing.
Hey, Bill, don't you mean the pancreas? And I went, yeah, the other P organ. The placenta will secrete some hormones, but it's not the insulin. So again, as you get a little bit older, things pop in that shouldn't be there. But again, one of the things I'm really proud of is, based on the feedback, based on our results, I'm still pretty good at being able to relay that information. And I think part of it is, I tell my students I won't BS them. If I don't know something, I just tell them I don't know it. And then what I want to do is we learn it together. And for most instructors, I think what will happen with that is that will instill respect and confidence from the students, because they're scared, especially as they go along the pathway, that, okay, am I really going to pass my registry exam? And then, can I really do this job when I get out there to do it? And so if you're open and honest about your own fallibles and things where you can make a mistake, rather than reducing your credibility, I think it increases it.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah. And then it's really cool because, like, I followed Dave on Dave Pfeiffer
Oh yeah,
on Facebook. I love
he's
seeing his
awesome,
stuff.
man.
Oh my god, I can't wait to meet him in person because like he's like, actually, you're wrong, Brandon, about this and this. I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then he provides the references for it, which is really hard to get these days. And
He does the same thing to me, and I got to be real honest with you here. Now, when he first came on board, it was like, who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? And then I realized this is a smart dude. And he doesn't do it from an ego perspective. He really wants people around him to have the right information. So when you get to meet him, you will find out he is extremely low key, and I will say a very humble person.
oh,
And
absolutely.
so, but we need people who will say, well, no, that's not exactly right. And especially when we're teaching, regardless of whether we're teaching in the ambulance bay or we're teaching in a college or a university, we need people that will say, wait a minute, I don't think what you said is exactly right. And here's why. And then to provide the background to this. I have really come to appreciate David again because I know that if I give old information or bad information, I'm going to hear from him and I want to hear.
Oh yeah, it's the best way to I guess grow. Otherwise
Absolutely.
we're stuck in that traditional mindset of backboards and sea colors. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's awesome. So since we're here and we're talking about the imposter syndrome stuff, what do you feel like? Because when I first heard you say that, I was like, what? And then you came and sat in my class and about talking about imposter syndrome. I'm like, the man Bill, like, why is he feeling this? And what? First off, why do you feel it? And what do you feel?
That's a great question. And I got to be honest with you. I love to be open and honest about my struggles with imposter syndrome. And here's two things that I always tell new paramedics, new responders, new lecturers, new educators is number one, the good news is we all have it. Never ever listen to someone says, oh, I don't have imposter syndrome. I have 100% confidence in what my abilities are. That person's a liar. Okay. And so that's the good news. Everybody has it. Now, here's the bad news. Look at me. I have 50 years in EMS. It is, at least for me, it has never gone away. And so, what you have to be able to do now is rather than try to make it go away, is you have to be able to work around it. Let me give you an example. I'm not going to name the conference because I'm afraid they'll never invite me back again. But it was an awesome conference. It was in Alaska a couple of years ago. And like it always does, when I get ready to speak, imposter syndrome reared its head up. It was an hour before I was supposed to speak. And my wife had traveled with me, as she often does. And I called her up on the phone. She was back at the hotel or doing shopping or something. And I said, hey, I can't do this. I cannot go out there and I can't talk. These people have no idea what they paid for. And I said, so here's my plan. I said, let's go to the airport. Let's go home right now. I will tell them something came up as far as a family emergency and I had to leave. And I'll reimburse them. I said, I've got some money. I'll reimburse them for all their expenses. And my wife is the smartest person I know, notwithstanding the fact that she married me. But there was silence on the end, and I knew through that silence that I wasn't going to the airport. And so my wife just simply said, go do your presentation and call me when it was over. And I did. And so in this imposter syndrome, the way that it affects me is I just can't believe, first of all, that people will invite me to come and speak. I can't believe that Eastern Kentucky University, a program that has a very proud and well-known paramedic program, has asked me to be part of their faculty. And the underlying thing for imposter syndrome is, number one, we're not good enough. Number two, somebody's going to find out. The other part of that, Brandon, is it always amazes me when people invite me back. It's kind of like,
right.
You mean I fooled you? And so I think for me, the thing that it's important to know is to tell other people, this is normal. This is normal. I think this is your body's way of preparing you to do something that is abnormal and very fearful. So that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and we hope we get the butterflies in our stomach to fly in formation. And at least it appears for me that I've been fairly successful in managing that imposter syndrome. But again, we all face it. And I think one of the things that helps is that the more we talk about it, the more normal it becomes. And so it has become very normal for me to both experience it and talk about imposter syndrome as just a way of, number one, handling it myself. And then number two, helping other people, especially young speakers, young instructors that are coming up and thinking, I'm the only one that feels this way. And then when you find out, nope, you're not the only one, then it is a great relief.
Yeah, no, that is, dude, you were so right on that. It is like, it was one of the scariest moments for me. It's like they're asking me to come up and talk. Like I went to, plus, like, I love her to death, Ellie Martin out of EMS Associates in Salt Lake City.
Oh, yeah.
Love that conference. She's the one who gave me my in. And my paramedic instructor was actually Mike Smith. And most everyone knows Mike Smith. So,
yeah.
You know, I sat front row in his class, and that guy, like, I saw more spit come out of his mouth than I could ever possibly imagine. And he actually straight up told me, he's like, yeah, you're not going to be a speaker. That's not going to happen. So I had this thing over the top of me of like, this is not going to go well. And so I had all that. And then she asked me, she's like, hey, and this is like probably 4 years after I first met her. And she's like, why don't you come down and do you have any copies of Mike's old lectures? And I'm like, well, I could probably get them. And she's like, well, why don't you come on down and I want you to revamp them, modernize them. Because he had the old, he had the old projector slides, like on the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. So he's old school.
Yep.
And he finally got a Mac when I was in school. But anyway, yeah, it was fun. And, but it was great because I get down there and I'm all dressed up in my suit and tie, and I go in this room and I am sweating bullets because I'm in Salt Lake City and I'm meeting Scotty Balder and Scott Lale and Bill Justice and Janet Taylor, like all these big names, and Bouvier was there, and I'm meeting all these big people, and I am terrified. I am 23 years old or 25, whatever it was. And I'm like, this is not going to go well for me. And I had standing room only for a Mike Smith talk. I had 400 people in the room. And I'm like, this isn't good for me. And then I did it. It was obviously my first time, and I had my hiccups. It was great.
Absolutely.
But then eventually you get the comments back to like, because I'm fully expecting all my comments to be like, if you get your rating of 0 to 5, I'm expecting a 2 to 3. And I've never got that because I get great feedback purely because like I ask for it. And I'm like, please give me this. It's the only way I improve. And that started off as one conference, and then then next year I only did that one again. And then after that I got a little bit more and more. And now I have 7 in the next 6 months. It's like, what the hell happened?
Outstanding. Good job.
Yeah, I'm getting tired, which leads me to my burnout lecture, which was that's a whole nother game, which we'll absolutely cover a different day. But yeah, so like going through all that, it's just it was always constantly reminding me of like, hey, I got to check myself, but am I even qualified to talk about this stuff? I'm not good at anatomy, physiology. I'm not a doctor. I don't know any of this crap yet. I'm expected to do it, and I'm getting paid to do it. And it's not just in the speaking world. Like this is like work in general. If I'm going running calls and I'm expected to do all these things, I get called out for missing a STEMI. I screw something up on like here, and I'm getting my butt chewed, and I'm like, I am not worthy. And it stuck. And I don't know if it was a childhood thing or which it most likely was as well. But it's just, there's so much more to it than just these little things. And I was literally flying home from my first trip to Alaska, and I was sitting on the airplane. I'm like, you know what? I am so nervous about myself. I'm going to do a lecture on imposter syndrome. And then I started. Yeah.
That was an awesome lecture that you did.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's morphing into a whole bunch of different ones, and now I'm going down some really crazy pathways. But it's been great. And what I really like about it is because like most everything and I know you do it the same. It's like we teach this stuff purely because we get to learn more, but we also get to we learn it, so then we get to share it, and then people appreciate that because we're our best product, and we're the product we're trying to deliver anyway. And going through with doing this lecture, I learned so much about it. And I read this book. It's called The Imposter Cure. I'll have to look that up. It's a super easy read. Yeah, The Imposter Cure. And I'll put a link into the description for this. But it was talking about like how to manage this. And it's like, you know what? I had so many people because I put a post up on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, what about the people who have They like for me, I always used the syndrome as almost like an excuse. Like it was like I use this to get better. Like I'm never good enough, so I'm always going to push harder and push harder. And I put a little poll out on LinkedIn, and I was like, "Hey, who all deals with this?" And dude, I swear, it's just like you said.
Yeah.
I had like 70%, or I'd say 30% of the people were like, "I don't deal with this problem at all." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "There's got to be a hint." It's like turns out it's like 80% of the people like even CEOs of massive companies, like 80% of them have some sort of imposter syndrome.
Well, if you look at some of the most well-known people, you know, John Lennon, he said, when I was doing some work on imposter syndrome, John Lennon used to vomit before every concert the Beatles came out and started, simply because he was so afraid of going on stage. And we know how that little band from Liverpool turned out. Another good example. Now, you said something that is critically important here, is that you used imposter syndrome to get better. Now, there are some people that will use imposter syndrome as a reason to stop what they're doing, even if they're really good at it. Let me give you an example. And this is going to go way back. You'll have to Google it. Your younger listeners will have to Google it. But one of my favorite singers of the 60s and 70s, Barbra Streisand. She was just a powerhouse in the 60s and the early 70s, and all of a sudden she just dropped off of the radar. She didn't perform, she didn't sing, she didn't give interviews, and we found out later at that point in time it was called stage fright. But now we know that it's imposter syndrome, and she used that literally to stop her career. Luckily, she was able to work through that, and she came back with a second half career. So again, what you said just a second ago is so critically important, is that you can go two ways with this. You can either look at it and say, oh man, this is too uncomfortable, I'm never going to do this. Or you can look at it and you can say, I'm going to use this because I don't want to purposely make mistakes, so I got to be on top of my game. But Brandon, the other thing that I see that it helps me is that I look to the end, because almost all the time people are so gracious after you've come and presented. And if you make yourself available, and if you make a mistake, you own it. And then afterwards, people will come and talk to you after the session is over. And man, my endorphin system just kicks in. So I try to remember that okay, you're going to do a lecture. You got an hour, you got 50 minutes, you got 90 minutes, whatever your slot is, but understand what's coming at the end. And that also has helped me as well.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than like getting that conversation with somebody at the very end where I'm gonna have him on here eventually. He's a buddy of mine, Cody, who actually got me started on this podcast thing. Good. And yeah, he sat down with me after I did a course called Empathetic Medicine. It's just how to treat people like people. And also by taking care of yourself. And I was talking, he came and sat down with me afterwards, and it was so it was like magical almost, because he was like, everything you said hit me so hard. And he wasn't the only one. There's a couple others, but we sat down like 3 hours. And to me, it's like that one person, that one connection, that one thing that they learned, that helps me feel so much better about what I'm doing. And not only that, and I get to help them out.
Absolutely. And for me, I realize I have more years behind me than I have ahead of me, both from living and from my career. And what I want to try to do is that I want to try to help other people the same way people helped me. Been people in my life who took a chance on me. Now, one of the things, Brandon, you mentioned, I think you said your instructor said something about, well, you'll never be a speaker or something to that. Yeah. We listen to those things, and because we're looking at these people as authorities and experts. And so I can remember I was leaving a job and going out to a little tiny town in southwest Kansas called Garden City, Kansas. One of the best experiences that I'd ever had. I just had an incredible boss there, good people to work with. EMS had their own cadaver lab. This is what's really cool. And so I can remember as I was getting ready to leave, some of my friends had a going-away dinner for me. And one of my favorite high school teachers came to that. And when he got ready to leave, he came over and he said, Bill, I want you to know how proud I am of you. But he said, I also have to be real honest with you. I never thought you'd amount to anything. And so it made some of my friends really mad. But in reality, he was right, because I didn't study. I just scooted by in high school and everything. But again, when we hear those things from our parents, from our friends, from our teachers, from people that we view as, number one, they're experts, and number two, boy, I'll never be like them, but I really would like to be like them.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't build us up, then what happens is we believe that is the truth. And it's in the conversation that we carry on with ourselves is the most difficult fallacy to dispel. Whether it's the news or the TV or whatever news outlet you're looking at, it's fairly easy to go to look at that and say, that's not true. I know that's not true. But when I'm talking to Bill, inside my head, which is a scary place to be, it's kind of like, this is reality when it's not. And so, again, one of the things that I like to do is I try to, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important just to be open and honest so that people know when you feel this way, you're not the only one. And this is one of those good situations of when you can actually say to somebody, you're not special. Okay. You're just like the majority of other people. And the people who say they don't struggle with this are probably lying. Now that's between them and themselves. But again, utilizing this to get better. And again, I think that has helped me in my presentations. I think that has helped me in my career, because I don't want to go out and look like a goober. I don't want to go out and look like somebody that purposely didn't prepare and didn't know what they were talking about. Does that happen? Yeah, on occasion. Now it happens much less. And then we have to own what happens. You mentioned a second ago when you gave your first lecture that there were some hiccups. And even now, I'm betting, even now that you're an experienced lecturer and you're on the lecture circuit, you still make mistakes. That's because you're human.
Every time. And I embrace it so much.
Yeah.
I'll be like, well, yeah, that sucked. Anyway, let's move on.
Yep. And so, again, one of the things that I tell folks is, and somebody else told me this, is that the audience is there hoping that you will succeed. And that's really helped me. They're not your enemy. They're not there to say, man, I hope this guy's a jerk. I hope he royally flops on this. Yeah. Or else they wouldn't have come in. So when you were speaking to that full house, that was a full house of people that came in and said, man, he's got something I'm really interested in, and I'm pulling for him. I want him to do well.
Totally, man. Totally. Now, let me ask you this. So this is something that I had a really hard time identifying. It goes back to that Imposter Cure book. It got to the point where it's like identifying, like you're talking about the perfectionist, the soloist, like all like the different categories and classifications of someone who is an imposter, a fraud, someone who feels they do not belong. And then there's like, and it literally explained to a T that whole, like, we do it to make it better. But the next step on that is like, it was a blank, I swear it was like a one sentence. It was just like, but what if that never happened? Yeah. And I was like, how does one make it so it doesn't happen? And I've seen so many people, like, it's really cool. It's coming to limelight and people are talking about this stuff now. But it's like, how do we make it so it doesn't happen? For me, I'm at the point now where it's like, I'm stepping back from it. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, I see what I was doing. And it's just, I know it's not much, but it's like a little minutia thing that overhangs over the top of us. And once you get rid of that, it's like, sky's the limit. Like, I'm starting a podcast. I'm becoming a functional medicine health coach. I'm doing all this stuff.
There you go.
Why? Why not? And do I know something? I know something some people don't know, but other people know stuff I don't know. And I accept it.
Well, here's the thing in that, and I don't remember much about my geometry classes when I was in high school. And then my physics, here's the thing I tell folks, is that here's how you understand the difference between chemistry, biology, and physics. If it stinks, it's chemistry. If it's green, it's biology. And if you don't understand it, it's physics. And so in physics, we talk about angles. And about the only thing I remember within physics, and it's helped me, is that just a tiny change in the degree of an angle at the start of the angle means a huge change as it progresses out. So what you said is critically important of looking at that minutia, because I can guarantee you can always make whatever you're doing, whether it is a lecture, whether it is a baked good, it's spaghetti, whether it is being a parent, you can always make it better, because as humans, we're not perfect. We're always going to be infallible or be fallible. We're not going to be infallible. And so by making that tiny tweak, once you have been giving a lecture for a number of years, that's going to make big changes. Something that you said a while ago is critically important. You have to be willing to hear bad news. We talked about David Pfeiffer a while ago. And when David and I first started working together, I recruited him to come to work for us. One of the best decisions I'd ever made. And he would come in and he would start criticizing me and saying, and here's why. I didn't take well to that. But then I realized, first of all, what his motive was. And second of all, I realized that if I listened to this dude, I'd get better. And so I do. And so now I'm in the process now. When I send something out to somebody and I tell them, edit this, tear it apart. I've been through the academic review part as far as getting tenure. You might hurt my feelings, but you'll never know it. And I tell students that the same thing. Again, with all of our classes, part of what we have to do within the university is that everybody gets to do an anonymous review. And I tell them what I'm really interested in. What I want to hear is, oh, Bill is great. He's awesome. Best instructor that I've ever had. What I need to hear is how I can make this course better for the next person that's going to take it. That's what I need to hear. And so I always go into that section of the comments first, because, again, when I look at those, and sometimes it hurts. Sometimes, occasionally, it's not fair. But in every criticism that we get, I believe there's, at the very least, a small grain of truth. We have to find that truth and to work on it. And that truth may be part of that minutia that you were talking about. But again, fine tweaking and fine tuning things is incredibly important as we gain more experience.
Yeah, one thing that I've personally done to make this a little bit better for me is the word criticism. That was huge in my heart growing up. School, I hated school. Was the worst thing ever for me, and I hated it. And it was more or less like a punishment, bring me down type of ideology. It was just always sitting on top of me, like in sports, whatever. I was always being criticized, and then I took that terminology and I'm like, you know what, screw it. My battalion chief I was working with, he calls it's not criticism, it's constructive feedback. And if you do that, you throw that little positive twist, like the positive self-talk on it, those little things, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're not criticizing me, you're not cutting me down, you're just telling me this is where I would change things. And I put a different tone on it, I put a different label on it, and it's just completely, it's flip-flopped all of the way I build my presentations, literally the way I do everything. And it's been so awesome and so helpful.
Yeah, the thing you got to remember about that constructive criticism is that we have to consider the source. Now, again, sometimes we have people who have ulterior motives that say, well, hey, I just want to give you some constructive criticism. You stink. Okay, that's not constructive. There's nothing constructive about it. However, if, like you said, your battalion chief, like we said a while ago with David Pfeiffer, with the people who come in that today is the first time that they've ever seen you, they have no vendetta against you. They don't have a grudge against you. So what they're telling you, positive and negative, is really going to be valuable for you as a speaker, as an educator, to improve what you're able to do. And so don't fear that constructive, or that, what did you say your battalion chief called it?
Constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback. We should never fear the constructive feedback, but we have to always filter it through who said that to us. And especially constructive feedback that's coming from somebody that we trust is invaluable. We got to take that and hold on to it and build to get better.
That's why we all got our mentors. Literally what they're there for. Like, I'm having a bad day. I know I'm wrong. I need to talk to someone who's going to tell me that and why. So I like how we've been like I really like the educational side of this and like the professional conference speaking side and lecture and all that. And it really brings you back to like the core root of all of this for me, which was just being a provider.
Yep.
And I know because I see it all of the time on the streets of people like second, triple, quadruple times second guessing themselves, I guess. I don't even know how to say that. And just because there's like, I don't know, like where am I at? And I'm like, what's your gut decision? Make your gut decision, do that, and then if it's right or wrong, we'll go from there. And then you'll never do it again if it was wrong. That's my favorite thing about being a preceptor, because I'm like, I purposely let people fail-ish.
Yeah.
Right? We have to. Because you get that emotional pinpointed memory of, I'm never missing that STEMI again, or I'm never doing this ever again. And
yeah, this is one of the reasons I think, Brandon, why you and I get along so well. Is I have a presentation that's called "Why Failure Should Always Be an Option." And so, because we learn so much from our failure, I can tell you, long before I ever got into education, long before I ever got on the speaking circuit, like other people, I was a street medic and I loved it. But again, it's kind of like, did I make the right decision? How are they going to learn that I really don't know what we're talking about? I've had some incredible bosses that I've worked for. And it's been really nice over the last decade or so to see this whole concept of just culture come out. I worked for a guy in Georgia who he was instilling just culture long before that phrase ever existed. And basically what he wanted us to do as I moved into a supervisor position, and even prior to that when I was a field medic for him, is that he wanted to set up an environment so that people would feel comfortable to come in and self-report. And the reason being is that if you didn't self-report, you would lie. And he was right. If you were weak on your IVs, he wanted you to self-report that, because otherwise what you're going to put in your documentation is establish the IV on the first attempt, fire department moved and pulled the IV out. Or as we were transferring the patient over to the hospital stretcher, a nurse pulled it out.
Yeah. How could I word this without getting in trouble?
Yes, you're exactly right. And I will be honest with you, I did that several times again prior to me. And again, if somebody tells you they didn't, they're lying. But again, in this situation, I think as EMS managers and directors, and again, in your situation where you're doing QA, I think you got to go in and you got to build this up on the front end so that you can say to a person, you made a mistake. Let's see why you made a mistake. Is it a problem with your knowledge? That's the easiest place to start. Or a little more difficult, is it a system problem that sets you up for mistakes? I was extremely upset several years ago when a nurse at Vanderbilt University was charged with murder because she gave a paralytic instead of, I think that she was looking for
TXA,
an
they look the
antibiotic.
same.
You're exactly right. Something along that line. But she had been working. She was towards the end of her 12-hour shifts as a middle of the night. Vanderbilt, if you've ever been there, you know incredibly how busy they are. But they charged this lady with murder. That's not just culture, because guess what's going to happen the next time? It's going to get covered up. She self-reported even.
Yeah.
And so we have to be in a position that, okay, if you make a mistake, how can we help you from not making that mistake again? Either education on your part and or fixing the system. And along the same line, Brandy, two things that I tried to teach my children as they were growing up is, number one, make new mistakes every day. Because if you're making new mistakes, you're not repeating the old ones. You're getting smart. You're getting wisdom. And the other thing is just as valuable is learn from the mistakes of others, because you get the wisdom, but you don't get the consequences. And again, that's part of that. When we fail, we learn something, but often failure is really painful. So if we can learn from somebody else's failure, we get that wisdom, but we don't have to go through the bad consequences.
Oh, dude, I absolutely love that. Yeah. So just culture, thinking about that, I remember when I first got started, my MPD, Dr. Hoffman, he is one of the coolest dudes I've could ever work for. And he's awesome. The type of guy who's like, if you mess up, just text me. I'm like, okay. So like, I forgot what it was, but I did something, and I think I missed a STEMI, and an ER doc like threw a book at me. I was like, what can I learn? He threw a book. He's like, start reading. And I'm like, oh God. And Yeah, we're actually good friends now, me and ER doc. But
Right.
Dr. Hoffman, I called him. I was like, hey, this happened. He's like, yeah. You ever going to do it again? I'm like, nope. He's like, that's all I needed to answer. We're moving on from here. And I'm like, freaking sweet. Like that's how it should be. And like, I love my crews because they do the same thing. We had it's TXA and paralytic. We actually found a system problem because the vials are very similar. The seal went off because we were having accidental administrations, and no, it was no fault of their own because they were getting both anyway.
Yeah.
But they're like, hey, yeah, this happened, and they're like on scene and it's going. I'm like, well, thank you for telling me. Is there anything we need to do to manage this? And we worked on that. The next week we had an entire system in place to fix that entire problem because just by them telling us, and I'm like, it's no fault of your own. Like this is us thing. So I appreciate you coming forward and doing all that. And it made them much more comfortable in their skills and even identifying it. And let's fix these problems together. And because we've all been
Yeah, it was similar with the boss that I was telling you about that I worked for in Georgia. His name was John Hitchens. And invariably we would have what he termed a backing incident. And the person would, obviously they'd have to disclose it. It'd come in, and most of the time they were relatively new, sometimes not so much, but they were scared to death. I'm going to lose my job. And this was back in the day and time when there was not a shortage of EMTs and paramedics. So if you lost your job, it was hurting.
Rough.
And so he would bring them in and we'd sit there. And typically if I was the supervisor and I was in charge of doing all the investigations for any type of accident, John would ask them, have you learned anything from this? And he said, the person invariably said, oh yeah, I'm always going to use a spotter. I'm going to make sure the spotter sees me, whatever. And the second thing John would ask them is, are you ever going to do this again? No, never. I've learned my lesson. And John's answer always, never. Anything else was, okay, go ahead, finish your shift, go get on the truck. And the people would say, you're not going to fire me? They say, good grief, why would I fire you? You've learned your lesson. If I fire you, I'm going to have to replace you with a brand new person. And they haven't had their backing incident yet. I said, and John would say, my money is based on you now not repeating the same mistake.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I think at the same time, though, every now and then, and we see it at agencies all over the place, is like those people that kind of made examples of, and that's you're questioning yourself all the time. It's like, I really hope this doesn't get seen. Like we'll talk about it with each other. It's like, I really hope this doesn't get seen. I really hope. Okay, what do we got to do? What do we got to do? What do we got to do? And it got to the point. It's like, hey guys, we're just gonna be honest. Hey, this happened. I'm sorry. We're working on it. Here's a solution. So,
and there's so much of this that is intertwined with what we started out with was with this imposter syndrome. Because again, let me back up. When I make a mistake, if I'm not able to come to somebody that I know and trust and say, hey, I screwed up. How can I fix this? And then once we've fixed it, how can I learn from this? Then that gets stored into the loop in our brain, and we begin listening to that. You're not good enough. You're stupid. You remember what you did 20, 30, 40 years ago? And so that all feeds in and off of itself. And literally, it's kind of like, if we can't offload when we make a mistake, then now we begin to feel inadequate and scared that we're going to make another mistake, which guess what? When we're tired, we're fatigued, which is EMS all the time anymore.
All day, every day.
We're going to have a greater chance of having a mistake again that may be similar or the same as to what we did before. Versus if we can go to somebody in authority and we know, first of all, they're not going to make an example of us, because all that does is it breeds resentment. It breeds resentment in that person, but guess what? It breeds resentment in the rest of the agency as well, because it's, hey, I saw how he treated John Doe over here, and they're going to treat me the same way. Therefore, I'm covering up all my mistakes.
Yeah. There's definitely different ways to go about things. We had an incident not too long ago, and the guys walked into my office. They were having a rough day. They walked in. They looked at me. I'm like, so I don't really think I have to say anything. And they're like, nope. I'm like, we've learned. They're like, yep. I'm like, have a great day, guys. Move on. And as easy as that. And it all depends on the reception and all that. There's so much to it, but we can talk about this all day long.
Yeah, we could. We definitely could.
Yeah. So what else is, because we've talked about the AI stuff. Like, what other things are you working on that's like that? Oh, you're doing your podcast, your 10-minute one, right?
10-minute.
Tell me about that. because I want
So
everyone to hear this too.
I love doing my podcast. I wish I had more time to do it and to be
Mm-hmm.
more consistent. So one of the things I would give you as advice as a new podcaster is just be consistent and be regular. But one of the things that I like to do is that I like to take one subject rather than the whole house of medicine.
Oh yeah.
We take one subject and I try to break it down to in a way that I would wish somebody would have broken it down for me when I was going through. So we only spend 10 minutes because, first of all, our attention spans are really short. And this is true regardless of what your age is, okay? I'm 68, and I could never be in nursing because I wouldn't want to be with one patient for a long period of time. That's why I chose EMS. And so my attention span is short. So it's very short, 10 minutes at the most. We talk about one thing, and then we move on to something else. And enjoy doing it and get a lot of good feedback from people. One of the things that thrills me is I do a lot of co-A site visits, and on a regular basis, part of that site visit is we go and we talk to either former students or current students. And on a regular basis, probably about 20% of the time, I'll go in and talk to a class and somebody will say, "Hey, you're the 10-minute guy. I recognize your accent." So it's really, that's really pretty cool when they do that. And so I love teaching just simply because I want to leave EMS better than I found it. And so education is just one way of doing that. Operations is another one. Administration is another one. And some of the things that you're doing as far as from the affective domain of EMS is so critically needed.
So
and,
often.
again, and miss both towards the patient and towards ourselves. We have this huge discussion now about mental health, and it's becoming much more acceptable to say, "Hey, I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I have PTSD." And that's a lot better than eating the end of a gun. And so we got to continue to make those conversations normal so that people don't feel, "Oh, well, if you can't do the job, suck it up, buttercup, move on."
Do it every day, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an aggravating portion of the career, unfortunately, and we've all been through that stuff. And I appreciate like my shift now because we're very family oriented and we talk about the deepest, darkest stuff. There's a few of them are like, "I'm at exit stage left." I'm like, "You'll be part of this soon," and it's just a matter of like getting to that point of like, "Hey, we all have our demons. We've all seen some stuff. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out. We're here together," because there's so much benefit from peer-to-peer conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
And like therapist is great, and I love mine. But at the same time, it's like, hey, I got some other stuff to talk about too. And not many people are going to understand it other than maybe that person that was right there with you going through the
How else could a person understand what you've seen with like a decapitation of a young lady who was doing nothing but driving to go get her parents some food or something? And so we see and experience things in its most raw manner. We see and experience others' emotions in their most raw manner. And over a period of time, I'm a firm believer the human body's not designed to absorb that. At some point in time, we have to offload it. And we either offload it by, much like you and I do, we talk to a therapist, or we get physically sick and the body physically breaks down.
Cortisol is a nasty thing at the end.
Yeah, cortisol is a terrible thing. Or our brain begins to break. And eventually, if the brain begins to break, this is why I think in the general public, as well as especially within public safety, we see such a high suicide rate. And so we got to do a better job of letting people know, I understand a little bit about what you're going through. I don't understand everything because you are you and I'm I. But again, just normalizing the discussion is important.
Yep. Validation and being heard.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
It's absolutely huge. So,
agreed.
So what's up next with Mr. Bill Young?
Oh, my. Well, I am currently serving as the president of the National Association of EMS Educators. We've got our 30th
I got to get a part of that.
We're always looking for good speakers, especially in the affective domain. We've got an incredible emphasis on our last 3 or 4 symposiums on mental health of the students and the educator.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so I will make
Cool
sure
talk.
that when the call for presentations come out. So, getting ready for our symposium in August in Orlando. That's going to be pretty awesome.
Beautiful.
I'm working right now to help to mentor and train somebody who I would like to see to be my replacement as program director. I really don't have any intentions of retiring because teaching is not that physically demanding, and I love the teaching aspect of it. I don't like the administrative part of the various organizations that we have to answer to all the time. But I love being around students, and I love the challenge and the validation that they give towards me. So I'm going to continue to teach until they have to wheel me out in a wheelchair or something like that. I just stay busy, and I do a lot of site visits. I learn lots of things from other programs, so I stay busy with that as well.
Right on, man. That is so cool, and I cannot thank you enough. I know we're right at an hour, and we can go for another 10, but my camera's dying. Oh, geez.
Yeah, another day.
I'm buying. Yeah, I switched out cameras, and that one died. So now I'm gonna have to get one.
You're okay.
But dude, this has been so awesome, and I love this conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
And we're gonna have more. So like we'll put it down on the docket. I got another one coming up here, Mr. Chris Ebright next week. So
man,
dude, love that
Chris
guy,
is
whiteboard
Chris
wizard.
is a good guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
But I think next week what we're gonna do. So this will come out here not next Monday, but the Monday after, and then I'm gonna do every 2 weeks is my goal. And
Cool.
I think Chris and I, because usually every time we meet up, like we were in Colorado, we went up to it was one of the super nice towns up there. But anyway, we were up there. We both got old fashions, and we sat there and talked for hours. I'm like, I think we're gonna do an old fashioned on the next week and sit down and talk. He doesn't know that.
Well, thank you for supporting the economy of Kentucky. I appreciate that.
Anytime, my good friend. So no, dude, I appreciate it. Get all your stuff up
Thanks,
on there.
Brandon.
Yep, and I'll get all your titles and how to get a hold of you. Anything else you want to throw in for what you got going on or what you're working on?
The bottom line here is if you've got an educator out there that needs some help, all you got to do is ask. If somebody wants to learn how I got into the speaking circuit, all you got to do is ask. If you got a student out there that is struggling with something, all you got to do is ask. I may not be able to give you all the help you want, but I will definitely, number one, have a chat with you, and I'll try to find you some resources that will help you. So
that's the best part about this.
Yep.
So awesome. Like there's people who's like, well, I get texts all the time. Who should I talk to for this? And who should I talk to for this? I'm like, well, I ain't that guy, but you need to go talk to these guys over here. And
I do the exact same thing.
Awesome.
Exact same thing. So thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you being here. Or
Bill,
being here.
I appreciate you. So, all right. Well, this should come out on Monday. Everyone should get that. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Trying to figure out what the heck I am doing at this still. So, but we're getting there in one-man show. So thanks everyone. And we will get back to you guys here in a couple weeks. So thank you so much, Bill.
Right.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to the land.